That's the river Senne. In 2010 there was done a research, and during it there was not a single fish found in this river. It was completely dead. It flowed through one major city, but you can find it only at the outskirts, because the center of the city is completely covered up. I'm in Brussels, that's the capital of Belgium, and I'm going to the European River Summit.
Last name.
Thank you.
It's worth fighting for every little shitty stretch of river, even for every tree. It's worth fighting, but we need another level. In Albania alone, we might be able to protect between 300 and 500 kilometers of rivers with one shot. So we need to dare to do more. Big ideas never came out of a meeting, never. It always started in the heads of a very few, sometimes individual.
But activists to me always summed up sort of something in my mind about people with big banners and flags and questionable, personal hygiene. People like this at Ecoalbania, who did amazing things like line up, huge battle lines with the police and, bring to a halt, open cast coal mining in Poland or Germany. But for me, this isn't the sort of activism I want to do. Mostly because I want to act before the places I love look like this picture. If you're tying yourself to a digger, you're about 3 years too late in the campaign. But also, because I really didn't like the idea of getting maced by the police. But while these people are going to spend one day picking up trash from the river with us, then maybe the next day we can get them to spend 15 minutes filling in a form on a government consultation. This is the trail cleans, beach cleans, river cleans are the gateway drug to environmentalism for people who enjoy doing stuff in the outdoors.
To fight climate change, to empower people, promote law, to protect natural world, we use law. And our approach is basically that law drives permanent change, so we do get involved in cases with far-reaching impacts to change the system for good. Fish cannot go to court, and neither rivers, as we know, but I still do claim that rivers do go to court by people.
People in Poland, like in whole Europe, think dams are actually cool because they associate it with places that they have been using for recreation purposes, that they have been visiting touristically. So we decided to show the dams in a completely different light as those monstrous, huge constructions that have this amazingly big impact on environment.
I mean, we have 1,000 hydropower small-scale plants in Sweden. We contribute with 0.2% of the electrical production in Sweden. So it's really, to protect them, it's really nuts.
Dams and reservoirs emit greenhouse gases and make climate change worse. A lot of us already know that, but most of the public and the media don't know it. So how do dams and reservoirs cause greenhouse gases? One of the biggest ways is through deforestation. At least 125 million acres of land across the planet have been deforested. And of course, forests are carbon sinks. And so when you cut down the trees, they often burn them in some places, or they just, some places they just flood them. But whenever vegetation or organic material breaks down underwater, so it doesn't have oxygen present, it emits methane. This is a picture of the Colorado River Delta. It is drained completely dry and the river no longer reaches the sea, and 2 million acres, which is about 1 million hectares, is now totally sand dunes. And of course, coal is known as being the worst. When you burn it, you emit the most greenhouse gases. However, hydropower has a huge variability because some hydropower reservoirs can emit as much as coal. Hoover Dam emits as much greenhouse gases on its surface as a coal-fired power plant.
The price of the electricity market is high and the demand is high. They put on the turbines, and if it's going down, they stop it. And that is generating an ecological disaster effect called hydro-peaking, because the water is going up very fast and sinking very fast, and this is costing millions and millions of small fish and other aquatic inhabitants their lives. So this is like a flooding, but not a flooding that comes 1 or 2 or 3 times a year, natural, but 3 times a day.
So the place is very posh and stylish. It's a music theater. There actually will be concert and there's a lot of things on the ceiling. Yeah, quite nice place. Here is some food. And they have vegan food, which is also cool.
Really key moment is to talk about is the World Commission on Dams, because that was a big change in the way people understood the impacts of dams. Before this, the hydropower industry got away with saying dams are all great, there's no evidence of impacts. They were fighting dams and also communism at the same time, because those things come together about protecting our common resources and our freedoms, to protecting areas that now are national parks that we enjoy, to taking on corruption, because the hydropower industry still remains a very corrupt industry. Environmental defenders around the world under threat, and they released their annual report where over 200 environmental defenders lost their lives and were killed because of their defense of communities.
Let's talk about fish sex to raise awareness about freshwater migratory fish and why they are prevented from mating.
Whatever you want to call it, everyone is doing it. Except, unfortunately, me. I'm Otis, and this is my girlfriend Sophie. We want to make some, loads of babies before migratory fish go completely extinct. The problem is, there's something seriously ruining the mood. Dams!
We want to raise the awareness of migratory fish that, swim along rivers to breed, but who are actually preventing from mating because of barriers like dams in rivers.
They're everywhere! We have over 1 million dams and barriers in Europe that are destroying our habitat. But more importantly, they're blocking us from the place we make love and, lay our eggs. You try doing it with this in the way.
Presentations are over and we're going to the dinner, which is in another place. Cinema Galleries. And apparently that's might be the best way to communicate and get new connections and new projects and everything.
I know Roberto. He won't stop until there are no barriers blocking the veins of the mighty Senne. Starting with this one, the Besjana Dam. Complex and challenging dam removal due to its large sizes and contaminated sediments.
It's the biggest dam removal that had never happened in Europe. It's the first time.
Yeah, and it's the home of the last wild salmon river, the Loire River Basin, big scale. Yes, there are some rivers, of course, in Spain with salmon, but they are short migration fish, you see, okay? And today, more than 2,500 small and large obstacles has been removed in France. Yeah, and this is one of the dams we removed. Look like that. And this dam also, it looks like that. This was a great day in my life. 97 at 5 o'clock in the evening. And that's after, only 6 months after, the same place. Free river, just flowing again, singing again.
Need to discuss fish sex, and we actually have a fish sex problem in Norway, where escaped salmon from these aquaculture farms are mixing with the wild salmon and watering out the unique genetic populations. Norway's wild salmon was just recently put on the endangered species list, together with the pearl mussel and about 600 other freshwater species. You can also add 500 species if you add the category of near threatened.
You cannot have the richest giving things, money or whatever, to the poorest. That's not what our society is about. That's not what justice is about. Our society and justice is about recognizing rights and building the tools for people to protect their own rights. That's how we really fight against poverty. And I believe it's the same philosophy that we need to develop for nature.
How do we fight for rivers in undemocratic societies?
The rights of nature are actually a tool in order to fight against this capitalist and productivist world. Nature is our ally in this fight. And if we want to really recognize the rights of nature, this shouldn't be only words on paper, but you need those legal tools to ensure that nature is protected.
It works on paper, but so many times you just don't get there. You simply don't get there. I mean, for example, in case of Lower Sava for the Mokrice Dam, ichthyological studies were business secret. Mm-hmm. That's why we couldn't access them. I mean, what? How can this be business secret? And we ran so many circles that, you know, we had them, we knew what's in there, and I understand why they were keeping them from us. But you cannot use them, you cannot claim anything from those studies because you officially don't have them.
You're fighting this kind of entrenched, corrupt power that has friends in the government in many countries. And the hydropower industry, the dam industry is very known to be a very corrupted industry.
And they're saying that this clean energy, they're saying it's carbon free, they're saying it has zero emissions. None of that is true. No countries right now, 0 of the 182 countries in the IPCC are actually reporting the emissions from dams and reservoirs or hydropower.
We're waiting for the bus which will take us to the Senne river, and it's at the outskirts of the Brussels.
Instead of going out in the field, you take a good look in the mirror. Yeah, let's not talk about it.
This is one of the most polluted rivers in Belgium, and actually they treated it as a sewer for many years.
Pollution and the problems with floodings were of such a degree that there was no other option at that time with the thinking of then than to cover the river. So now it's about 14 kilometers in the Brussels region and 9 of the 14 are covered. That's why you have to look for the Senne at either the extreme south where we are now or the extreme north of the Brussels region to really see the Senne. Many citizens don't even know there is a river.
This morning I was meeting my neighbor just before leaving here, and I say, I'm gonna show the Senne to some people from a summit. And he told me, yeah, but the Senne, it's a sewer, right? And I said, no, not anymore. It was, but not anymore.
The fish was gone completely by 2010, but about 2016 it started to reappear again.
They installed the water treatment. We saw some fishes back, and then they had a huge problem, and for several weeks, months, they were not able to run the water treatment anymore. And then in 2013 we didn't find any fish, and then in 2016 they came back. So the good thing is that they're coming quick, but the bad is that if we're not treating the water properly, they can go gone quite quickly.
In 2016 they did some countings of fish, and there were 15 species of fish found again.
Okay, there's a vegetarian bus and this is the vegan bus. There is a food for participants, and yeah, they divide it in vegans and vegetarians.
It's only like 20 years ago that we finally have a water treatment, and you could see that just after installation of the water treatment we had a drop in nitrate, phosphate, DOB and DOC, and the opposite, an increase in the oxygen. That's why we didn't find any fishes 10 years ago, because there were no oxygen.
When NGOs have been fighting against the government for years and years and years and years, the trust breaks down between those organizations. And so it's really difficult when you then go, okay, how are we going to work together to build a park and build a future? Then that's super hard. And that's where somebody like a third party, like a foundation or a business or somebody can come in and kind of just smooth the waters a little bit, because there's good intent on both sides, but there's a lot of history that needs negotiation and discussion. You know, the events, the rock concerts, artists, dancers, and how it brings the people in. It's not just one thing, but it's a multiple of things that's driving the change that we see. As you know, Patagonia is in business to save our home planet. They've demonstrated that recently through donating 100% of its profits to nature. I'm super excited about that, super proud. And I'm here today at the Rivers Conference to talk about our work protecting the Vjosa River, which is the longest national park, or will be the longest national park in Europe.
The main threat to the rivers that we are challenging in our campaign is planned international inland waterway connecting the Baltic Sea in Poland with the Black Sea in Ukraine. The mega project is called E40 waterway. It's going to converse the Vistula River and other wild rivers in eastern Poland into 2,000 kilometers long channel for navigation with a series of dams and the water locks. There is a plan to construct 12 to 15 dams. It would devastate 8 Natura 2000 sites on the Vistula River, plus 1 on the Wieprz River. And Polish breeding population of at least 4 bird species would decrease by 50%. This campaign is about protection of the sites, the hotspots of biodiversity along the rivers that are at the serious threat if E40 waterway is constructed.
So all of these people around may look casual too, but actually they're real badass. They like destroy dams, they explode and blow up them, and they spend like decades on their projects to achieve their goals, make the rivers free, make the natural parks out of them. The guys who really push forward massive projects, and they achieve them.
Was this far-fetched? Definitely, and impossible? Hell no. But I can say it wasn't impossible, although it was really, we had really difficult moments at times. In this bureaucratic procedure, we came to the fact where they actually didn't want to accept the biosphere reserve in Serbia, for example, because of the border issues. Our formula, I would say that definitely a vision, patience. We were patient, so it took us almost 3 decades. And definitely teamwork. I mean, my colleagues are amazing people. As the saying is, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Just a short movie to show you how much energy we need to give to restore the river. For me, it's insane because 20 years ago it was a green river. So that's what we did in 2020. So we are discovering the tunnel of the river. So it's a lot of work, a lot of concrete. We try to reuse as much as possible the concrete on site to consolidate the banks. Most of the materials were reused on site instead of being sent to landfill. And so the 2/3 of the Senne in Brussels is like this.
The one we are fighting against is the Montenegrin power company, Elektroprivreda Crne Gore, that they just decided to go to the basement and like see what projects they have there, and they found Komarnica, and it's a project from 1976, and they want to build it now. So this is a hydropower plant that is worth 600 million euros, and it would only produce like 7% of the Montenegrin electrical consumption. We are wondering, other than the corrupted jobs, why would this hydropower plant be built? Because we have enough energy. We like even exported some energy last year, and this is a very big why for us.
Team up and do a multidisciplinary team. Don't do just biologists, geologists, and hydrologists. I mean, it's not that I'm against them, but when you have meetings with policymakers, with city halls, with the Ministry of Environment, they automatically catalog you as a green terrorist. That's true. They were saying, we don't feel enough support from the European Commission to our electricity lobby, and we are green, and we are blah, blah, blah. And I said, excuse me, maybe there is a terminology confusion. You are renewable, but you're not green. The French guy that was constantly screaming to me all the freaking morning,
He couldn't scream to me anymore because commissioners were there. He stood up, he went to the moderator, all red. And then the moderator said, "Oh, I'm sorry, commissioners. We came here with some environmentalists." And I said, "Excuse me, I'm not an environmentalist. I'm an engineer." I said, "Holy cow." The faces of the commissioners who came after to talk to me were like, "What's going on here?" So really, it's really important to team up and have a good team.
We need it because the quality of the sound and
There are like lawyers, there are like policymakers, and also musicians. They use music. They're like cooks, and they're researchers, and all kinds of fields join together to make the rivers flowing free.
We try to reach different bubbles. We're now trying to engage cooks, chef de cuisine, because you can talk about, sing about, assess the diversity, but you can also eat it, no? And you try to reach out to different bubbles to make the whole issue visible. That's the thing. In communication theory, about 80% of a decision is driven by emotions. But also scientists need to communicate in a way that people love it and that the people understand it.
To mix science with environment, with rivers, and with art, because we think we need to see the rivers, as Daniel said, as a complex ecosystem with many parts and many experts involved.
As a foundation for advocacy work to base our arguments on, we need scientific data. But on the other hand, we need to communicate it with emotions, to raise emotions, right? We need to fight in a way that makes others to join us, right?
This is a slide I did 5 years ago, and I thought of activists, maybe you have to be a tree hugger, you might have to be a pure hippie, you might be a radical, or you might be as good as being able to talk to animals or something. And this wasn't the activist that I felt I was. And it's a discussion that comes up constantly, no? Do you feel that you're an expert? Do you feel that you're an activist? And I know that a lot of people struggle with the combination of these. And it gets really interesting if you put it in a 2D space, no? If you say like, oh, but what about being both at the same time?
The main message I want to bring across is that it's actually a combination and you don't have to choose either or. I think it's a combination of things. Everyone knows a lot, everyone has their reasons for protecting rivers, and be able to speak about them and to stand for them, no?
Every year we have 1 million birds and we have 100,000 mammals dying from plastic. So this is massive. Plastic pollution is increasing, and by 2040 600 million tons of plastic in the sea, which is more than fish actually. So you get also the big picture. We also have microplastics that are directly added to products, so cosmetics, but also pens, pesticides, detergents, and the list goes on.
To speak to different audiences, sometimes you use facts, sometimes you use emotions. And for facts, of course, scientists go a long way, and for emotions, it's more like musicians or books or arts or photo. We've seen here a lot of cool photos as well.
Kesäaamun muistan kaunehimman, kun mä nousin niin aikaisin. Linnun laulun muistan helkkyvimmän, joka minut vei muistoihin. Hämärään vielä peittyi maa, kukkaset niitä.
I don't know any other country in the world that would have eternal permits for hydropower. Usually it's 40, 50, 60, I heard 99 years from Lithuania, but it's really, we have forever. And so there is not momentum when you can kind of attack them and put the new legislation in and so forth. Donald Duck, I think no other country has dam removal. In Donald Duck we had, there's another audience again for this.
And in the last 5 years, we've removed 50 migration obstacles. And the work is only in the beginning because we have about 35 to 40,000 migration barriers in Finland. Well, it's certainly not that much emissions, but then the effects on nature are very dramatic. And there might have been like no fish in the river for 100 years. So they are produced in such a tiny amount of energy that when they are put out of the grid, then nothing happens to the grid.
It's a very interesting and dynamic river. It has very rich biodiversity. Only in the last years we have identified 1,100 species, and some of them are new to science, like this one in this picture here. But the Vjosa is threatened from the hydropower construction. There are planned 45 hydropower, and luckily they are now being halted, or they will not happen, hopefully. 10 years ago we had a clear goal: stop the hydropower and declare the Vjosa River National Park.
Most of the victories started on the ground. You know, blocking things, protesting things. Do you believe Fridays for Future would ever been successful when they're not blocking the street? The people really determined to fight for their rivers. They often say, I give my life for it. Maybe they don't give their life, but it sounds honest. You know, it sounds, you believe that when they say that. And this is the right thing.
The event is over, and now it's like the last dinner and party. There will be a live band playing, which is cool. We'll check them out. I think the main point of such events is to make new connections and go and work together and keep together, because the bigger we are, the stronger we are, the more things we can achieve. It was so inspiring to see so many stories of success. The people who are fans of the rivers, like what kind of tactics and approaches they use, and they achieve their goals. Sometimes it takes decades, but they do, and it's, yeah, dedication on the highest level. So I found this a very valuable experience, very interesting. I learned a lot of new stuff, and I hope you too. So if you like the video, please subscribe to my channel, and see you next time.